Welcome back, scorers. I don't always like to talk about basketball. I want to talk about real life because not everyone makes it to the next level. A lot of us are not going to make money playing basketball. Well, how else can we make money? So I want to tell you how I made my first six figures after basketball. The first lesson when it came to making my first six figures, I had to change the people I was around. You can't always change the scenery right away, but you definitely can change the people you're around. Once you change the people you're around, everything else will change. Welcome back, scorers. Before we start, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and share. We want to keep giving you great content. As you guys already know, we always have podcast guests on here. We want to keep getting great guests, but we need your help. Liking, sharing, commenting. I always respond to all the comments, so make sure you guys leave a comment. I like the interaction between us. And also, if you want to get down with the Score Society merch, make sure you check us out, scoresociety.com, or you can check us out on all these platforms right here. As I always say, we always talk about this being a basketball channel. I don't always like to talk about basketball. I want to talk about real life. And the reason why we should talk about real life, because not everyone makes it to the next level. And the next level could be professional, NBA. There's a lot of us out there who played basketball and didn't make it to the next level. Let's think about it. Division I schools, you got about 300 and about 24 or 64 or something like that. Division II, same thing, over 350. Division III's over 400. So that means a lot of us are not going to make money playing basketball. Well, how else can we make money? So I want to tell you how I made my first six figures after basketball. After basketball, it was, I took the route of trying to go overseas. I had a couple contracts to play overseas, but nothing really significant. The most I think I was offered was about $1,700 a month. Obviously, they pay for your room and board. And I realized I'm worth more in America. So now I had to enter the workforce. I'm about 22 years old, 23 years old-ish, and all I know is basketball. I had an opportunity to coach at a high school in San Diego with a former coach who coached me in junior college. I didn't know if I wanted to take this opportunity because I never coached. I never even thought about coaching. What influenced me was I didn't want to go back to Philly. In Philly, I lived in the inner city. I already know what comes with it. So I said, what the heck? Let's go to San Diego. Go to San Diego. I still needed a job. Coaching position only paid $1,200 for the whole season. That means for 5 months, I had to figure out how to make $1,200 stretch. That's not going to work. Coach who hired me was nice enough to let me stay in his. Let me stay in his home office. I stayed in about his home office about 2 months. I'm not going to lie. I thought I was going to be okay just staying there. I thought they was going to let me stay a little longer until his wife came to me and said, hey, listen, you got to the end of the month to find a place. Now, I've been looking for jobs everywhere. Couldn't find anything. Until one day, I was talking to one of the parents of a player on the team. And he said, have you ever sold cars? I never sold cars. I never even thought about selling cars. In fact, the same thing you're thinking right now about selling cars, I thought the same thing. Man, they sleazy. They don't make no money. All they do is lie. I'm not a liar. But I needed a job. And I needed it quick. He said, hey, when you come up there today, I'll make sure you're hired. And at this point, I'm thinking he's just blowing smoke. I've been everywhere trying to find a job and couldn't find anything. And this guy said he's going to hire me on the spot. We'll see. So I go up to the dealership. And sure enough, I was hired on the spot. Again, I knew nothing about cars. I just knew I needed a job. One of the things that piqued my interest about this job is that even if you didn't sell cars, you would still make at least $2,000. Now, that might not sound like a lot right now, but just imagine back in like 2009, 2010, fresh out of college, no bills other than your phone bill, not even rent, not even a car note, $2,000 a month. I can navigate with that. I'm coming out of college. You talking about college where we eating ramen noodles every day. I can use $2,000. So of course, I try to milk it. I worked there for a few months, try not to sell no cars so I can go ahead and get my check and then go coach. That wasn't working. Called me into the office. He said, hey, listen, If you don't sell 10 cars by the end of the month, we gotta let you go. So now I had to change my attitude. I had to change the way I was looking at things. And one of the things that I was doing wrong at this car dealership is I was hanging with all the guys who was complaining, who hated the industry, who hated all the clients. They hated everyone. They hated everything that was going on. But that was okay for me because I didn't know how to sell cars anyway. On the days I didn't sell a car, I can complain with those guys. It felt good. You know, it felt like a little family until after that meeting. So I had to think, what do I need to change to make my goal a reality? And the first thing I thought about was, yeah, I'm hanging with these guys at the dealership and we always complaining together, but there's another group of guys who are flourishing. They're selling 15 to 20 cars a month. They're making anywhere between $12,000 to $17,000 a month. So I had to ask myself, what are they doing so different? How can we be working on the same car lot but getting different results? Until one day, I bumped into one of the salesmen who were flourishing. I bumped into him at the vending machine. And I asked him, I said, how's your month going? He said, man, it's going a little slow. I only got about 15 cars out. My goal is to get to 20. And we only got 5 days left. So I got to sell a car a day. I never forget it because I only had 5 cars out in that month. So I had to figure it out. I had to figure out, why is he selling 15 cars and I got 5? So at the end of the night, we're all walking to our cars. And I asked him, I said, hey man, I really want to sell cars, but I don't know how to do it. What do you think I'm doing wrong? And the first thing he said was, you gotta stop hanging with the guys you're hanging with. Those guys are the problem. Those guys been here for years. They've been complaining for years. They do the bare minimum. Once you change the people you're around, everything else will change. And that was the first lesson when it came to making my first 6 figures. I had to change the people I was around. You can't always change the scenery right away, but you definitely can change the people you're around. So the very next day, I made sure that I didn't hang with those guys. I just focused on making one sale. I was watching the guys who were flourishing. They was moving fast. They was never sitting around talking. They was just moving. Every time a customer comes in, they go shake their hand, they greet them, they see what they wanted. Eventually, I started copying them. Everybody who came in, I said, hello, how you doing? How can I help you? Before you know it, I'm selling more cars. Not only am I selling cars, I'm selling at a rapid rate. That following week, I sold 4 cars. That was more cars than I sold the month prior. And it took me a whole month to get there. All because I just changed the people I was around. I stopped hearing all the negative stuff. I stopped focusing on the negative things. But then there was another problem. I didn't know the product. I had a lot of hustle. I was coming in on my days off. I was doing everything I needed to do as far as talking to customers. But I was also burning the customers. Burning in a car dealership means that you're talking to a bunch of people and then you're just letting them go. So I was pretty much burning a bunch of customers until I got the right customer. And that's not the way to go. Because the guys who were flourishing, they was working half as hard as me, but still selling cars. So now I had to go back to the drawing board. I had to figure out the product. I had to do all the research. And that's the second lesson in this. Sometimes we have the hustle and we're working really hard, but we don't do our research on the industry that we're in. The guys who flourish in any industry, they know their product. They know their customers. So I had to learn my customers. I had to learn why the Kia Soul was the most common car sold on our dealership. I had to learn why people love the F-150 so much. And once I learned it, took me up another 5, 6 cars. I was telling people so much information about these cars that they stopped asking for discounts. Now, don't get me wrong. There were some people out there still asking for discounts. But for the most part, the discounts changed. They stopped asking for discounts. And maybe they wanted maybe a couple free car washes and a full tank of gas. But other than that, they was ready to go. And all because, 1, I changed the people I was around. 2, I started doing my research. And although I was flourishing, although I was selling cars now, I still wasn't in the clear. I still was roughly around about 12 to 14 cars, but I'm competitive. If other guys are selling 20 cars, I want to sell 22 cars. But there was another thing, closing. And that was the hardest part about selling cars, because everyone got in their mind their budget. And you can have someone come on a car lot and they say, I want a car for $200 or $350 a month. You sit them down and their car payment is $600. So you got to be able to close the gap between $300 and $600. And that wasn't always hard for me, but if I wanted to get to 22 cars, I had to figure out how to close. So here's what I did. What I would do is listen to other closers, try to steal some of their verbiage. I would also give half my deal away. Now, that might sound drastic, but think about it. If I gave half the deal away, it wouldn't be one on a car that's had a lot of profit, but I would get half my deal away if I knew a car didn't have a lot of profit. So I'd rather sacrifice that one little small deal for a lifelong lesson in closing. So I would go to one of the best closers and I say, hey, I got a deal, but I don't know how to close this guy. Could you help me? And he'll help me. He'll close it. He'll take half the deal, but that's okay for me because I understood sacrifice. I had to sacrifice. I had to sacrifice my ego. I had to sacrifice a couple deals here and there, but it worked. So over time, as I gave away half my deal, I started to learn more about closing. I started reading about it. I started studying it. I started watching their mannerisms. I started listening to it more. And before you know it, that same year, that year I came in, didn't know anything about cars, I was the salesman of the year in one of the top dealerships in the country. And that's how I made my first 6 figures. Get away from negative people. Can't always listen to negative talk. Gotta change the scenery, gotta change your friends. 2, research. Do the research on the industry you wanna make money in and figure out how to make money in it. 3, sacrifice. Might not be sacrificing the deal, but it might be sacrificing sleep. It might be sacrificing some fun. It might be sacrificing anything you might find pleasure in this moment. But trust me, it's worth it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know about your first 6-figure year. Or maybe I missed something. Or maybe you got some questions for me. I'm answering all questions. But until next time, let's continue to think elite and together. Welcome to Score Society.